beautiful friends. I'm so excited to dig into today. It's going to be so much fun. I've got Brooke Herbert here, and she's going to be digging into some really powerful topics. I am so excited for you guys to dig in because what's really powerful about her story, and I know there's so many of us that can resonate, when we go in for answers and we're not receiving them in the places we think we're supposed to be receiving them. So I'm going to dig into what that means. But first, I really want to introduce Brooke and a little bit more about her so you can just get to know her from a heart perspective. So she is a board certified health and wellness coach, an entrepreneur, and the co-founder of Gold Ivy Health. She also has a podcast, and she is a group fitness instructor and this health advocate for people that are looking to better understand what's going on with my body. She spent 5 years with this medical mystery and lots of doctors telling her, I don't know, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. And none of it was resonating with her soul. So I cannot wait for us to really unpack that and her own healing journey and how she's created that into this really powerful business that's empowering women to really connect back into what is my truth? What is my divine truth? Even if someone outside of me is sharing what they believe it to be true, if I don't feel it within me, it's not my truth. So I can't wait to dig into that even more. She's incredible at empowering thousands of women to reclaim the power in healing themselves. Like I always say, we are our own best healers. So I can't wait to dig into that today. And what's cool, which I resonate with, she uses these ancient healing remedies and modalities and inner wisdom and psychology in this really powerfully synergistic way that I think all of this matters. All of this plays a beautiful part in getting us back to, our truth, our divine truth. And it's almost sometimes so simple outside of all of the other things that we feel like need to be complicated. So, Brooke, I'm so excited that you're here today. I cannot wait to dig in with you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I love you so much. I'm so grateful that this podcast happened, that it's alive. It's doing tremendously well, which is no shocker. You are you, and whatever you put your mind to and whatever you touch is magic. So I'm so grateful and blessed to be a part of this show. Thank you for having me.
At any time. I cannot wait to dig in. It's going to be a really empowering conversation. I know people who are still dealing with mystery illnesses or mystery, diagnoses. They just don't know what it is. So I can't wait to learn from you today about that journey and kind of have you peel back the layers. So let's dial it back. So you went to over 50 doctors in 5 years trying to figure out answers, and you still had this like mystery, you know, diagnosis, and how frustrating. But I would love to know, like, how did you finally begin to find those answers and what was really going on with your body?
Yeah. So I'll take you back to when it all started, just to paint the picture. It was 2017. I was living in Florida just for the summer. I was there for a summer internship, and I was at what I thought the peak of life. I had
Yeah.
this new internship. I was about to graduate college. I had a new boyfriend. Like I was born and raised. I am born and raised in Wisconsin, went to school in Minnesota, and was now living in Florida with palm trees. Like what was life? I was obsessed.
Yeah.
And things were going great. And I woke up one morning, got ready for my internship, just like I always did. And when I looked in the mirror, I saw my face all broken out. And I'm like, okay, weird. What's going on?
Mhm.
We'll worry about this later. Next morning, got up, same routine, looked in the mirror, my face even more broken out. So like, what is going on? Next morning, got up, my stomach super bloated. And it felt like that for so long. Of every day that passed, just a new symptom would appear. And so when I was still in Florida, I decided to go to Planned Parenthood because I didn't have a doctor down there. I didn't have a
Yeah.
primary care doctor. And so I went to Planned Parenthood and they said, okay, you've got a yeast infection. Here's some medication. Go on your way. I'm like, okay, great. Here's my answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm back to Minnesota. Internship closes, living in Minnesota, and still things are just not right. My stomach starts hurting after everything I'm eating. I'm severely constipated. I'm bloated. I went from being go, go, go to having no energy. And that was huge for me because I loved being life of the party. I loved having multiple jobs. I paid my way through school. Energy was everything, and it still is to me. And so fast forward to a few years later, I was then living in Florida. I'd graduated college, moved back to Florida, and my boyfriend at the time, his mom was a doctor. So she connected me to so many specialties. We're talking GI docs. So I had endoscopies and colonoscopies, blood work done. And they were just like, you're a woman. You've been traveling a lot. You just graduated college, probably just stressed. And now knowing what I know now, stress is a huge, huge factor in it. My
Yeah.
nervous system was so dysregulated, but no doctor took the time to tell me what that meant. And so I kept searching because it was this energy piece. It was all of these symptoms, knowing something isn't right. And these doctors pawning me off, saying, take this medication. I was on different antidepressants. I was on different birth control. And it wasn't until I started my own podcast
Mm.
years later to share what I was going through that I was connected to a functional nutritionist.
Mm.
So fast forward 5 years, 50 different doctors.
Yeah.
I had dabbled a little in alternative medicine by this point. So I'd seen chiropractors, acupuncturists, and I had on Andrew and I, my cousin-in-law, my business partner, we had on a nutritionist. And she said, I really think you'd benefit from seeing a functional nutritionist, someone she had worked with. And in working with this one woman, this one practitioner, she had me do a GI map test, which for anyone who doesn't know what that is,
Me.
it is a stool test.
Okay.
And I had been told through my endoscopies and colonoscopies, we tested for parasites, you look good. And I'm like, okay. Because that was a big thing for me is, did I pick something up when I was living in Florida? So if for anyone listening, you go through this health journey and you start being your own detective, right? Of when did symptoms start? Like you're trying to pinpoint when this happened.
Yeah.
And so through this GI map test, which is a stool test, it tests the bacteria in your large intestines, your colon, it had solved my medical mystery. It showed me parasites. It showed me bad bacteria. Also, I had a mold test done. I had mold exposure. So all of these things, I started piecing them together.
Mhm.
And that's really when my medical mystery was solved. And it's when I say true healing began because I realized, oh gosh, okay, this is a lot more serious than I thought because it was years of disruption inside of me that had gone on.
Yeah. So would you say is that something that's like we collect those things over a lifetime? Like would you say that was like collecting from like day one, and then all or was it do you think it was like, "Oh, I picked this up in Florida." Like tell me more about that.
Wow, such a good question. But what I've learned now, if anyone's familiar with the book, The Body Keeps Score,
Mhm.
right, is that our emotions are stored in us and they manifest in physical symptoms.
Yes.
So when we talk about stress
Yeah.
earlier,
Yeah.
right, our mind and our body are connected. Our
Yeah.
gut and our brain are actually connected via the gut brain axis. So when we are in the womb, our fetal tissue, the same fetal tissue is connects, our brain and our gut. So they're actually connected. So there are pathways that run from both. So gut instincts, right? When your head's off, when you're really upset, you're anxious, you might manifest in a stomach ache.
Yeah.
Or for me, what a lot of it was my gut was so off. It was robbed by these parasites that it caused severe anxiety and depression. I didn't want to get out of bed. And that wasn't like me. I felt like something was robbing me of my personality. Come to find out it was parasite.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, I do believe, going back to your question, from a young age, I had stomach aches. I just dealt with them. I just
Yeah.
took a day off of school. And so once I started unpacking what was really going on and how do I heal? Because I don't want to live like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It forced me to go to therapy to solve unresolved trauma of my father leaving when I was a young girl, not having a relationship with my father. So fast forward 10 years later, when I sit down with my dad for dinner after not seeing him for 10 years and forgiving and letting go, ask me what that did to my health.
Ooh, what did it do to your health?
I felt so much better.
Yeah.
But I felt lighter. I
Yeah.
felt like I released this load, this burden that was weighing of me of, okay, I can't change the past, but I'm going to be okay. And I forgive not for him, but for me.
Yes.
So it's all interconnected.
Oh,
And I say that functional medicine, which looks at root cause, which they take a whole person approach, it helped me so much. But 90% of the things that really helped me take back my health and still do to this day aren't supplements, aren't tests. It was taking complete ownership of my health and saying, what is stored deep within me that I do need to solve? Or what do I need to let go of? What do I need to forgive? What lifestyle changes do I need to make? I call it honoring the basics, the foundations.
Okay.
How are you moving your body? How are you eating? How are you sleeping? How are you managing your stress?
Mm,
Those four categories of wellness, taking ownership of those have transformed my lives. And so many of my clients and women I speak to that, you search and you look outside yourself. Looking back, I'm like, I saw 50 doctors and I'm grateful to each and every one of them, right? They led me to my answers. But when I started looking in within myself, that's when true healing started happening and unraveling.
absolutely. So I always think of it like, we have this ability to suppress our emotions and then we start to become depressed. And then in my experience, it starts to manifest and from what I've studied, what I've understood, from what the healing work that I do, it starts to show up as disease because to me, it feels like calcified energy in that
Mhm.
area of the body that's trying to tell you a story. And I truly believe the body is telling the story of the soul. So when I have something physically manifest, I typically will actually place my hands over that area and say, like, what message do you have for me? What are you trying to tell me? I use Louise Hay book too, where it's like it's like it's a good jumping off point, at least to kind of say, like, what are the, emotional causes for the physical ailments? And it's always interesting where it's like when my dog passed away, I kept getting these nosebleeds. And I used to get them when I was a child. And I looked it up and it was like crying for love, and I was like, "Man, that makes a lot of sense," because during childhood, I probably felt like I could have used a little extra love in those days, and I also like, when Lady passed away, my dog, definitely crying for love, so it's very interesting because I feel like we're putting together these pieces to better understand, like, how can I nourish my
Mm.
emotional needs, not just my body, but like you were saying, it's that 4 parts. Like, how can I really nourish all of this? Because the body is housing the soul, and let me help you understand what the soul is wanting you to get into alignment with. So it's kind of a beautiful thing that it speaks really loudly sometimes because it has transformed your own journey, right? And how you feel like you're so much more in alignment, I would
Right.
say. Like, would you say now through this experience, you're living in this like a much more aligned space and your body has responded because of that?
Totally. It's taught me a lot about gratitude and
Yeah.
perspective shifts,
Yeah.
mindset shifts. Because it's easy to say, I was grateful that my body sent me signals and I listened and now I'm good.
Right, right, right.
That's not the case at all. I'm still healing. I'm still working with doctors. It's a process.
Totally.
But if I'm not in alignment with me, if I don't trust what these signals are giving me, if I can't advocate to myself, for myself, to these doctors, then spending the money on all this and
Yeah.
time and energy with these doctors, it doesn't matter,
Mm,
because they're going to keep manifesting, they're going to keep showing up.
yeah.
So, why does the same issue keep showing up for me?
Mm,
What is my body trying to tell me? Because in the grand scheme of things, it's just getting you way more in tune with your body, which is
yeah.
so beautiful. And so I think there's a time and place I've really found, and I believe there's a time and place for modern medicine. There's a
Mhm.
time and place for functional medicine,
Totally. All of it.
all of it. But you have to stand firm in, I know my body best,
Yeah.
and not lose track of that, because I definitely lost track of that. And through my journey, I believe the universe will give you problems until you learn from them. and it
Oh, yeah.
was
Yeah.
and it was trust and believe and patience, all of these things.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. One of my mentors always says it's like, you'll get the whisper, the intuitive whisper, and then when we
Mhm.
don't listen, it's the brick across the face. It grows like a little bit louder and louder and louder and louder until you get the boulder or the brick across the face, and you're like, well, dang, now I can't not pay attention.
Mhm.
Now I have to take off work, or now I have to,
Yep.
all the things that suddenly it's like forcing us to better understand, like, now I have to listen to my body. And the body speaks really loudly. It's the vessel that our soul is in right now. So if we have pain that we've somehow manifested into our body, we can't do the things that we would regularly do because and so with that, it really does force a pause sometimes. And so I think, what's really powerful is you talk about, connecting to that inner wisdom. And how do you do that? So for someone that's say either they're newer to that, or they're wanting to kind of like understand, what does that even look like? How do I connect to my inner wisdom? How can I become my own best healer? Like, what
Mhm.
does that look like for you? And what does that kind of feel like within your body when you're like, yeah, that's an intuitive hit, or that's
Mm.
my wisdom? What does that feel like?
Yeah, 2 things come to mind. One is the act of slowing down. You mentioned getting hit by a brick. That was the case for me. I said earlier, I was go, go, go. I worked multiple jobs. I was paying my
Yeah.
way through school. I had an internship. I would stay up late. I would work. It was like, of course I got sick. I wasn't taking care of myself. So slowing down to actually hear, what do I need in this moment? That's huge. When you slow down, that leads me to my second point is you can take inventory of your energy.
Yeah.
How am I really feeling? Where is my energy? Am I running completely on E? And so I need to just keep pounding coffee and
Yeah.
get fake energy?
Right.
Or am I really obsessed with life and I'm taking really good care of myself and this energy is huge?
Yeah.
We talk to a lot of really successful women who they aren't making time for their health.
Mhm.
And I like to speak to those women who do have their health because I say, please take it from me. You do not want to have to slow down.
Yeah.
You want to have to slow down just enough, like you're pulling back an arrow, so you
Yeah.
can keep going at this pace.
Yeah.
Because it's go time. We were just
Yeah.
talking to a bunch of pharmaceutical sales reps, and it's go time for them. And they hear slow down, and they're like, "Yeah, okay,
Mhm.
right." But it's very expensive. It's very time consuming if you do not take care of your health right now.
Yes.
And so,
Yep.
why can't we have both? Why can't we have the success while also taking care of ourselves so we can maintain this game that we have? So I would say for me, what listening to my intuition is slowing down enough so that I am in alignment. So I do know where my energy is. I do know what do I need. Meditation,
Mhm.
huge tool. And
Yeah.
the reason I love meditation so much is it is so different based on what you need. It's
Mm.
practice.
Yeah.
It can be you're doing the dishes and all you're doing is focusing on doing the dishes and you are fully in the present moment and you're building that present muscle.
Mm.
Because when we're in that present muscle, our nervous system is calm enough to self regulate, to heal. It's not pumping oxygen and blood to our muscles to run away from a saber toothed tiger.
Mm.
It's actually healing our body. It's helping with our digestion. Like that's one of the first thing that goes when you're in this chronic state of fight or flight, your body isn't worried about digesting food properly. And so, of course, you're going to be bloated, you're going to be constipated. So, when you start slowing down, meditating, putting your hand on your heart, your hand on your stomach, grounding yourself, just like we did before this call,
Yeah.
your body's like, oh, okay, I'm safe enough to not only digest, but to sleep. Like, who doesn't want to sleep better?
God, yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So meditation is one of the most powerful tools we can use to hear ourselves of what do I want? And ask yourself those questions of what is my body trying to tell me? Because the brain's job is to answer the questions we give it. So for me, it was, why am I so sick? Why can't anyone help me? And so did anyone help me? No, because that was the story I kept replaying and replaying. So instead of why can't I, it's what do I need? Starting to
Mm.
ask ourselves better questions allows us to tap into that inner wisdom.
Yeah, getting curious. Man, I love that. And being clear about, how am I getting curious? Like, what are the questions I'm asking? Because you're right, it is leading us in certain ways where it's like, why is this not working out for me? And it's like, well, I'll find about a million reasons why,
Exactly.
versus like, "Mm, what do I need right now?" That's such an opening question. Like, it just feels like there's so much expansion in that. And then it allows you to get creative and to receive what it is that you need to, where you're like, and what I love too is I'm hearing you say, like, you started a podcast to get answers too. Like, you're like, I'm going to share my journey and I'm going to bring in the right experts to get answers. How empowering is that? So I love how, sometimes they call it your karma becomes your dharma. But we could unpack that in a totally separate episode because I don't know that karma is necessarily even needed sometimes in this lifetime. But in general, it's this idea of like, I love that you were like, I'm going to become an advocate for my own health and support people on that journey too. So I love to hear how these have intersected and how you've been like, this has been so helpful for me to create something that's going to support other people. What did that journey look like where you were like, "Man, this is working and I want to support other people in doing that too?"
Yeah. I think it was being open to not having all the answers and still
Yeah.
believing that I could help people.
Okay.
I
Pause.
struggled that for
Let
so long.
Yes. Okay. Everyone, please listen to that one more time. Will you say that one more time?
Yeah. I struggled with believing that I was worth helping other people,
Mm.
even if I didn't have all my answers, even if I didn't know everything,
Mhm.
that sharing what I was going through was valuable, that
Yeah.
it would help people. And it
Yes.
has. And it's still something that I struggle with, right? I want to be this perfect person who's on the other side of it and can help. And then I remind myself, there is no end.
Mhm.
I will never be healed. And something that really helps me and whoever listening, I hope this resonates with you too, is our bodies will forever be trying to get into homeostasis because life gets lifey. We travel, we don't get enough sleep, we pick up a virus. And so, this idea of you take some supplements, you take the pill, and you're healed is just setting you up for failure. That's what it did for me all these years. So now I have the mindset around, okay, I will forever be trying to figure out, what do I need in this moment? What do I need in this season? And the simple fact that I have the intention to be well is enough. That is something to celebrate. That is me advocating for myself. There's no shame, no blame. I think about it with alcohol. I would go back and forth for so long of, okay, I want to experiment. I want to be quote unquote normal. I want to be able to have fun. Like I was right out of college. All my friends were still partying and I desperately wanted that to still be my identity because it's a human need. We want to fit in. We want to be a part of the group. And so I would experiment and then I would be like, yeah, I don't know. And I would openly talk about it because I had a podcast. And I
Yeah.
would feel so much shame around going back and forth on my word.
Mhm.
And now I'm like, I'm just learning, right? I'm curious with myself of, okay, what can my body handle? What feels good? What do I need? And that's you being tapped into your energy and where it is. And I believe energy is health.
Mm. There's just so much there as you're speaking. This idea of like, I believe the things that we are studying the most can be so supportive for other people to learn from because we take the time to study it, because we're so interested in it. And usually it's because we're going through it ourselves and it has us go down this personal path, this personal journey of like understanding, knowing the journey of evolution, understanding is a lifetime, forever. And so it's
Mhm.
this idea of like, because I went through this, because I started pulling together all these things, because I was seeking answers, that actually makes you the divine person for people to go to because people don't want perfect. I don't want to learn from a
No.
doctor that has never experienced what I'm experiencing because it's kind of like I had a male OBGYN and this next time around I'm like I kind of want a female. I kind of want someone who's like a little more tapped into like what's happening with my body. So that's been an interesting journey in and of itself where it was like I don't feel like the questions I'm asking, I'm really necessarily getting something from like an embodied state. It's more of like an intellectual state is what it
Mhm.
was feeling like with him. And so it's this idea of like just knowing that that journey is always going, it's always happening. And there's so much to learn from you when you are embodying the learning and healing itself in real time.
Mhm.
Because then it's like, "Oh, I'm not the only one that's consistently, moving through different" like you were saying, homeostasis, like, parts and places throughout the day where it's like, "You're right, didn't get enough sleep. Okay, didn't get that." So it's like it's so interesting, I think about how often we blame our bodies for not being in an optimal state, and how that's actually wreaking havoc on our bodies even more by the blaming and the shaming and all the low vibrational energy that comes from that. And so I just think it's really empowering to just think about like that conversation of like, I'm in relationship with my body every day. Like, how am I treating my body? Would I talk to my best friend this way? Would I talk to my son this way? Would I talk to you know, my partner, my cousin-in-law? Would I talk to anyone that way? Right? No. And it's just being in deeper connection of like being that like almost like a mothering force to your own
Mhm.
body of being like, how can I connect with my body in a way that feels nurturing? and not like it's wrong for having symptoms when really it's just trying to teach me or tell me or share some wisdom with me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Nurturing. It's such a good word. It goes back to the what do I need? What being curious with yourself. It all comes back to curiosity. And that's the healers and the coaches I've worked with, I've gotten the most out of who don't tell me things. Right.
Yes.
It's not the and I struggled with that for a long time when I first started sharing about gut health. I would share tips and eat these things and here's how to poop,
Huh?
3 tips and 3 best foods, and they'd go viral
Yeah.
on TikTok. And it would, here's this supplement, and people want the quick fix. And I
Totally.
really, really struggled with that because I believe, and I've seen firsthand with me, that I would get so obsessed with wanting to find it and searching outside of myself. And
Yeah.
I would spend all of this money on all of these supplements to just throw them away. I'd
Yeah.
get super excited. I'd read the book and like, no, and I couldn't stick with it. And it's because I was searching for all these things outside of myself. Now, when I had the coaches and the healers who would ask me, where did this come from? What emotions are you feeling? What do you think is really going on? These open ended questions that we can ask ourselves at any time brings the power back to you.
Mhm.
You are so powerful. We are so powerful, especially like women. Like, we create humans. Like, let's just take a
Ah,
minute and let
yeah.
that soak in, you know? And so, who's to say we can't take back our power when it comes to our health and our energy? And so, getting so curious and so intentional on how am I nurturing this relationship, it's going to be way more impactful than any doctor visit, in my experience. Now, that's not to say the doctor visits aren't necessary, but going in with that mindset is something I wish I had years ago.
Yes. Because your doctors don't know your emotions. They don't know
No.
what it's actually related to, because when we have that the body is triggered by something, it's not the trigger itself, it's what's underneath the trigger. That's why the coaching, the mentorship, that or therapist, whatever that is,
Yeah.
the power of an incredible question has me recognize things within me like a light bulb, like, "Oh my god, that's what it is. I didn't realize it was that, or that underneath that, underneath that, underneath that." And
Mm,
so and a doctor can't tell you that. A doctor can't say, "Oh, it's because of this that happened in your childhood and this because that person didn't show up and da, 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 da." The doctor can't tell you that. You are able to access that information within yourself through the power of a really great question or through the power of some sort of connecting to your subconscious. Like, and the stuff that I do too, I go even deeper than like what we consciously know. Sometimes there's stuff we consciously block, right? So going into things like Akashic records or things like that that allow us to really connect to like our soul story and why it's showing up in the body in a certain way is such an empowering tool too, because it's like sometimes we don't have the conscious answers, but sometimes a really powerful question can have us realize, oh my God, it was there all along. I just literally was blind to it
mhm.
until someone asked me to take a look.
And it's so important that people know this type of work exists. Yeah, because I, being from Wisconsin, I didn't know about functional medicine. I didn't know about all of these, NLP, neuro linguistics programming. That's a type of coaching that really helped me. All of these different modalities I didn't know existed. And so, if you do find yourself dealing with a chronic illness, you're on all these pills, on all these supplements, medication, you're searching from doctor to doctor, that might be the sign of let me take a step back, let me do some emotional work and just see what shifts. I think about chronic headache, chronic gut ache. Those are two big fatigue. Those are big symptoms of mine that when I did work on this unresolved trauma, uh, it it shifted so much. So I think when you feel like these issues keep coming up and you have gone to the doctors, that that's the calling of okay, let's try a different approach.
Totally. I completely agree. Yeah. And if you get that intuitive hit too as you're listening, maybe you haven't even seen the doctors yet and you're just like, I don't know. I think I want to try. So like there's something interesting here. Follow that expansive energy too.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, finding the answers within yourself or finding someone who empowers you to find those answers or someone that you're like, ooh, this person's asked me really powerful, or they're muscle testing you, or they're doing whatever it is that has you tap into your deeper wisdom.
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Powerful.
Yeah. And as you are dealing with all these chronic illnesses or you're just feeling off, right, the brain wants control. So for me, thinking about those four categories of wellness that I mentioned earlier, okay, those are things that I have control over. My bedtime routine, how I set myself up to sleep, how do I move my body,
Yeah.
how am I creating time in my week to block off space? Like, what does that look like? How am I organizing and managing my time? Because it did feel like a full-time job of taking my health back of, okay, this day I have 15 minutes, I'm gonna sauna. And this day, okay, all right, I'll do a castor oil pack. And I would do all these natural healing remedies. But finding the time, that was stressful in itself. And so, yes, your mindset is important, but also how are you fitting these things in your calendar? So you have the basics down, the foundational wellness habits down. 'Cause so many of us, especially in this society and the way our culture is right now, like, of course we're sick. When you think about our food and you think about how go, go, go and alcohol is romanticized, we're not setting ourselves up to be well. And so we have to take back the power. We have to take ownership. We have to love ourselves enough to carve out this time in our calendars for us.
Hmm. I'm just going to put this out there. So, in my mind, I was just thinking about this like last week. What I think would be so cool, and I'm just planting seeds for the universe now, is I wish that instead of bars, we had something where we could just come together and use like herbs from the world that helped us feel good. Like if we could, and I was thinking instead of a bar, we could call it a mat. Like let's just sit on the mat together and use herbs and like in old shamanic cultures, like I think about all these like the beautiful ability, or sometimes maybe it's just holding space, right? Holding space for one another without the herbs, like to your point, it just like brings up this idea and this something that I saw in my mind's eye, which was like, what if we didn't collect around poison, alcohol? Not saying it's right or wrong, but I did notice when I had wine 2 weeks ago, I was like, yeah, that didn't feel good. And that's why I don't usually, engage in like drinking as much. But I was like, what if we all came together in a way that was actually really nourishing and healing? And I know we're doing that in more places. I'm so excited. Maybe someone will pick this up and create something like this. But it just came to mind where I was like, wow, wouldn't that be powerful if we collected around herbs even more, or we collected around just holding space for each other to feel the big emotions and to shift the energy that's really what's keeping us down. Because when I was drinking in the past, it was more about like, what am I numbing from? Or how can I finally excrete all of this anger by getting so drunk that now I'm yelling? Like there was different versions of Christina when she was drunk. It was like, "Oh, I'm finally fully expressed," or "Now I'm screaming and getting it out," or "Now I'm crying," and it's like all the repressed emotions that I wasn't letting myself feel. I suddenly was in a not so safe container where people were like, "I don't know how to hold this." Like, "What's happening?" And so to create a safe container to be able to feel those big emotions, to be our freest, fullest expression of self sounds fucking amazing to me. I would go to that any day.
I love that. I love that. I do have a dream that I hope to someday that it manifests of like a healing sanctuary where it is that space and there's all different modalities, things that I found really helpful in one spot, in one, call it building, whatever that would look like, an oasis, a sanctuary. And so I've played with that idea because you're so right. Like, what would be different if that was normalized? If that was the thing people do? Because instead of numbing, you could actually go, release, and carry on. Like, everything would be better. And that's
Yeah.
not to say that those spaces don't exist now. I think community is so huge. And that's why my business partner and I have created our community. That's why we joined this mastermind that we're in that we met through, because community is everything. It is that human need, like I talked about, to belong.
Yeah.
And I had to shift my communities in my healing journey, going to yoga places, yoga studio, or engaging in new friendships, finding those groups where I felt like I could be safe to heal,
Mhm. Yes.
whether it was online or in person. Like I always tell people, what are you consuming? Not only the food, but the media, because that is planting seeds and stories.
Yeah.
What type of people are you following? Is it causing you to compare or is it causing you to be inspired? In my journey, something that gave me so much hope was following the people who had healed themselves and who talked about it. So I'd be like, if they've done it, okay, they know something I don't know. They're showing me what's possible. Same thing with the books that I read. It's choosing what am I giving my attention and my energy to, because that's either gonna come back to you or it's gonna keep depleting you.
100%. Yes. And to your point, I think about even those close relationships, the conversations we have in close
Mhm.
proximity, like, noticing, is that conversation nourishing you or is it depleting you? Because everything is energy. And so I had to be really conscious about, the spaces that I was even playing in as I was, waking up to my own spirituality, waking up to like who I was, the divineness within me, and having that dissonance in some of the conversations and letting it be okay, but just noticing, do I want to choose to spend my time in this space as much as I did before? Is there something that's more uplifting for me? Something that brings in more energy, something that's more inspiring. So, to your point, creating the community is online, in person, in who you're sharing your precious, beautiful energy with is so empowering and so important. Why mentors are incredible, coaches for that reason too, because it allows us to really tap into people, to your point, where they've done it before or they're holding space for you to just be completely witnessed as you. I think
Mhm.
there's something so powerful to be said about like, if we could just all hold space for everyone to just be who they are at their core, how lit up this world would be, and how much like just beauty and happiness and joy at the fullest expression of all sides of ourselves,
Mhm.
including the sides that are angry and sad. If we could hold those safe spaces in the sanctuary, like you mentioned, count me in, I'll be there. That sounds wonderful. To just be able to fully express on all sides of the spectrum. That's what we came here to do.
Totally.
Not
And you
live in the middle.
can't yeah,
Yeah.
you can't expect everyone to do that if it doesn't start
Right.
with you,
Exactly.
right? Collective healing starts with you being healed because I have so much more compassion for others going through
Yeah.
things, through everything. It just you have a different lens
Yeah.
of the world and perspective and view, and just so much of it is the gratitude, and it allows me to feel all of the emotions when I don't go to alcohol. When
Yeah.
I'm say, okay, I'm gonna take a break or I'm gonna do this challenge, it allows me to like fully feel the everything and then let it go. Like I can now say I understand what it means to feel the emotions, let them fully feel and not store them.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what do you mean you store emotions? Like,
Totally.
no, you can feel yourself needing to cry. Okay, I let out the cry, let out the scream, and then you move on. And you feel so much lighter to not carry that burden, that weight.
Yes, it's one of the most powerful manifestation tools that we have, is we're carrying around a lot of energetic weight. And what we want is at a different frequency, or we would have it right now. So when you think about it, when we let ourselves express, it releases the energetic weight to get us higher and higher. And then suddenly we're in alignment with the thing we're manifesting. And it's like, "Oh my god, all I had to do was kind of, like, release, purge that energetic weight that was in the way of the thing that I desired." It's one of the most potent and powerful manifestation tools, is saying, like, "Let me move that. Let me feel deeper
Mhm.
levels of joy and excitement, because what I want, it feels so good in my body now thinking about it, that imagine when you move the energy that's holding you, almost like out of alignment with it, and you access it even more, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I'm experiencing, while I let myself experience some of that pain, I'm experiencing higher levels of joy now, because the weight of it is now gone. So I
Mhm.
always think about like, what's the reward of feeling those things too? Is like more freedom, more expression, more joy, more happiness. And so for the people that might be kind of scared of feeling those emotions, one, find a safe space to do it, right? That's I think a really powerful way to start to lean in. Find a safe space to unpack it. But also, two, know that on the other side of that is a deeper level of joy, a deeper level of freedom, a deeper level of happiness, of expression. And so I just think that's what's so powerful about knowing there really is a reward to letting yourself feel it all and not demonizing any of it. It's
Yeah.
all just a part of the process. We're
Yeah.
meant to feel it all.
Yeah. I think the idea of how do I move this through me? Having that, where when you're noticing, okay, I'm feeling really icky or off or depressed. Now, how do I move this through me? And maybe it's crying, maybe it's journaling. For me, it was always exercise. When I was stuck in bed, and I'm like, I just, like the energy is stagnant. And so
Mhm.
I would say, okay, just get out of bed, just start to stretch, just walk. And I always say movement never let me down.
Yeah,
And it was the one constant because I would try different diets and I would try different therapies and different supplements, but exercise and just the simple act of moving my body always made me feel lighter, more positive, in a better mood. That's why I'm so passionate about exercise and why I became a fitness instructor because I've seen what it's done for me, for other people. The simple act of sweating to open up your drainage pathways to
yes,
release those toxins,
yes.
actual toxins and emotions, all of that that's stored within you that is just making us sick. Like if you take one thing from this podcast, get up and move and just
Yeah.
notice how it makes you feel.
It's a somatic release. It's like it's all the things that happen to our body, and we're somatically releasing stuck energy that just wants to move and be witnessed so we can get to that wisdom underneath it. For
Yes.
it's so powerful. That's what crying is. It's somatic release. That's what walking is. All of these are somatic releases to say, like, okay, energy, I see you calcifying here wherever I feel it. Maybe it's the gut, the back, the knee. I feel you calcifying here. Let me start to move it to understand the story you're trying to tell me. And
Mhm.
then I think that's what's so powerful is like when we move, there's so much that happens physically, spiritually, mentally when we do that practice of just saying, let me just move my energy for a second. Because when we're just staying stagnant, it becomes calcified, heavy, all of these things where it's like, then we have all the brain fog. We can't really see it. It's like, let's move it so that we can better understand what's actually happening here.
Totally. We talk about inner wisdom. When you're moving your body and you're out in nature and you're not listening to anything, you're just with your thoughts, yourself, the downloads that you'll
Yeah.
get. Woo! Amazing. You ask yourself those empowered questions, like we mentioned earlier, of what is really going on? What is my body trying to tell me? And you just walk with it. You will get downloads. You will hear, you will see things. Just be open to it. Just be
Yeah.
open.
God, that's so true. That's something about being in nature and asking those powerful questions to your point. All of a sudden it starts kind of flooding in as like it could be visuals, you could have a memory come up and you could have, sounds, whatever that might be, it'll come through or just a sense of knowing like, oh, that's what it is. But we had to move the gunk, the fog to get to the wisdom underneath it. So I think that's so true is there it really is movement is a powerful channel. Being in nature is a powerful way for us to channel, to just kind of open up after we've moved all the stuff that's in the way. Okay, what are you actually really trying to tell me? So yeah, moving your body, being in nature, asking empowering questions, like getting curious about what it is that is really going on. Like, what are you trying to teach me? What's your message? Those big open ended questions, that's where it starts to come through. And you're like, oh my gosh, I just needed to speak my truth about this. Or, oh, wow, I just haven't even expressed my grief there yet. Where you're like, maybe the memory will come in and you're like, yeah, that did make me sad. And I never really experienced that grief. What if I let myself process it now? What would happen? What if I let myself just let it go? Yeah.
The what ifs.
Yes.
What if I allowed myself? What if
Yeah.
it did work out? What if I did have the power? We
Mhm.
just recorded an episode of our podcast yesterday and we talked about things that allow us to take bold risks. And it's
Yeah.
this idea and this mindset of what if, but spinning it in a positive way. Because the brain will go, oh my gosh, what if that happens? What if that doesn't work out? And you catch yourself doing that and you say, what if? What
Yes.
is possible? What would be different?
Yeah.
Could be
Oh
so
my
much
god.
better.
Yes. You know what I do? It's one of my favorite exercises is I use tapping in 2 different ways. And tapping is really just touching on different energy meridians in the body and bringing peace and calm into the body. So, yes, I'll use it if I'm feeling anxious about something. That's how a lot of people use it. I just started using it in a different way, which is I've found to be so empowering is I'm visualizing the thing that I want going well and I'm calming my body and my nervous system and acclimating my nervous system to the thing going well. So I did this before I ordained my first wedding where I was like, at first I had all the what if questions around like, what if I screw this up? What if I get nervous? What if da 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 da? And then I was like, what if this is one of the most special days of their entire life? What if I get to be a conduit for what God desires to move through me for them? What if as she's walking down the aisle, she looks so excited to see her family and friends? And I've just visualized the entire experience as I'm touching on these different meridians on my body, feeling the peace and calm move through my body. And it's almost like a big what if in my body of bringing in more and more of that positive and like energy into my body. And when it happened, it felt exactly the same, where it was like, I've already seen this. Of course it's
Mhm.
happening this way. Of course she's looking so lit up. Of course the family is here and in such a beautifully inspired energy. And of course this is just the words are flowing through me. And of course, and it just became like an of course conversation versus it went from what if to of course
Yes.
through that
Well, something
experience.
you said so powerful is the brain doesn't know the difference,
Exactly.
right? So something I did that I saw on TikTok was best case scenario journaling. Have you heard of this?
I know and I love it already though. Let's talk.
So many of us, when we're journaling, myself included, will journal about our issues,
Mhm.
right? We think, okay, let's talk about what I went through. And I would go back through my journals and I'd be like, God, this girl is so depressed. This is so sad to read. Of course, I kept feeling more depressed because that was the energy I was putting out is this isn't going well and I can't find my answers. So I saw this on TikTok and I'm like, okay, whatever. I got nothing to lose. I'll give it a shot. And so every morning I would start writing best case scenario. What do I want to happen? And I would get so detailed and it would light me up. It would get me so excited. Like
Yes.
if I was quote unquote healthy, if I had the energy, what would be different? What would it be like? Because again, our brain can't tell the difference. That becomes our reality.
Yeah.
And things started shifting. When you start your morning with that, whew, let me tell you, same thing of the visualization you just mentioned. So powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, oh my gosh, I love the idea of starting that out in the morning, of, like, really and, like, having it be, like, best case scenario for today, and then you're kinda playing that miracle energy of, like,
Yes.
"Ooh, someone randomly reaches out to me, and this shifts, and wow, and that," and then you're actually creating that through an energetic perspective of, like, you've connected with it in your mind's eye, you've now put the creation energy
Mhm.
out there, suddenly it's happening, and worst case scenario, you're just in a good mood because you tapped that
Yes.
incredible energy, you know?
I was gonna say, you know what? The worst case scenario, you feel damn good. If nothing on
Exactly.
that page happens,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter because you have raised your energy, your vibration, so that someday that'll happen, right? You're putting that out in the universe. You're setting the intention, but you're kind of letting go of the outcome. And I found when I'm so obsessed with the outcome, I'm blocking it. I'm blocking
Yeah.
that happening. So it's writing down what you want, putting the intention down, and then just being in a damn good mood.
Mhm.
And that's when the miracles happen
Yeah,
when you're
because you're at the
fully
vibration
present.
frequency to
Yes.
receive and you're present. You're noticing when your body's telling you to turn left versus turn right instead of having the tunnel vision and the to-do list and I must adhere to this. You're like, wait a minute, something feels juicy over here. What if I turn there and then you meet your soulmate? Or then then you just miss what happened over there, which wasn't meant for you, right? It's
Right.
like maybe a low vibrational experience that you didn't want to be a part of, a car wreck, whatever that was. It doesn't matter. It's just really allowing yourself to be guided by tapping into a higher frequency and just really letting yourself play in that energy because high frequency creates more high frequency. And those are the things we desire in our lives are things that are happening at a high frequency. Amazing. Let's put that out in the universe and magnetize more of that in.
Yes.
And it really has us play with like creative solutions. What would that look like today to have an amazing day? What do I want to do today? How would that feel? I just love that idea.
Yeah. Again, with taking ownership.
Yeah.
What do you want your day to be like? How do you want to feel? And that intuition is so powerful. Like you said, when you look back, the best things that have happened to you, I can almost confidently say it was your intuition. Yes, you worked hard, absolutely. But those little moments, right? I think about meeting my boyfriend, or I think about deciding to move back to Minnesota after living in Florida. It was trusting my intuition that this is not right. This isn't a safe environment anymore. And this isn't meant for me. Packed up my car, decided to come home. And there was my now boyfriend just there. And it was the easiest talk about being in flow was coming to that relationship. But had I not listened to my intuition that said this is not right, get out, go back home, listen to your heart, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah.
It's fun when you think about, okay, how has my intuition, that inner knowing, the universe, how has it guided me to be right here listening to this podcast right now? And trust yourself.
Incredible. Yes.
Trust yourself.
Yes. It's so true. The biggest, most exciting things that have happened are when I just followed that flow of energy that was like, "Ooh, that feels expansive. That feels expansive." We didn't question it. We just
Yeah.
kinda, or maybe you did for a second, but then you ultimately followed it, and it's those miracle moments where you're like, "Whoa, there was some magic at play here." I don't know what that was, but it felt really good, and what it is, it's your high frequency connecting to another high frequency, and it's magnetizing you towards it and vice versa. And so just following that is so empowering. So incredible. I am just like, this has been such an incredible conversation. Thank you for taking us down this path of you healing your body and what that journey is looking like, what it looked like, how you really allowed that to become this catalyst for the business that you've created to support so many people through doing that themselves. They're being advocates for their own health. So I'm positive people want to connect with you even more. So where can they connect with you? And where are you hanging out? What's your favorite spots to play?
Yeah, I would say Instagram. I feel
Yeah.
like it's so many people's favorite. It's just great. So at Gold Ivy Health Co., you can find us. That's my business partner and I's company. Gold, words are gold. Ivy grows in hard places, just like we do. So
Oh, I
that's where
like
the
it.
name. That's where the
Yeah.
name came from. And then our podcast is Ivy Unleashed. We're
Yeah.
unleashing the things that are keeping us stuck, that are helping us grow. And that there we release episodes once a week. Andrea, she's 10 years older than me. She's a mama of three. We've got two different stories that are so passionate about helping women feel good mentally and physically. So we believe in mind, body, fitness, mind being Ivy Unleashed, and then body is our Move with Gold Ivy, our virtual workout platform where we
Mm.
help women move to feel good and really take into account not only movement, moving your body, but how are you eating? How are you sleeping? How are you stressing? How are you taking care of you? And reminding women that you need to be on that to do list because we live out of our to do list. We need to make sure we're on it.
So powerful. Where are you on that to-do list? Yes. Incredible. Thank you so much for just spreading your wisdom, your beauty in this space. I'm so grateful for you. For everyone who tuned in that received something really special today, feel free to tag us. We would love to know your favorite takeaways. It is so much fun for us. It allows us to create more of what you love. We want to do this for you. So thank you so very much for listening and for tuning in. We're sending you guys so much light and love. And until next time.